Hey, how's it going, everyone? Bill Lethman here for Money Evolution. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about taking withdrawals from a Roth IRA account. So this is a topic that seems to be getting a little bit of confusion here recently, and we've been getting actually a lot of questions about this. Specifically, in this video, what I want to talk about is how to take withdrawals from a Roth IRA account without having to pay a 10% penalty and also without having to pay income taxes on that withdrawal money as well. So real quick though, before I get into the topic of today's video, if you're watching this and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you guys do or how you might be able to help us, we've got some links down in the description below. There you can check out our comprehensive financial plan called Wealth Vision and also our retirement planning program called the Retirement Time Machine. So check out the links down in the description below. Okay, so the first thing we want to understand here is there's actually going to be 4 different ways that you can get money into your Roth IRA. And that's going to be very important because depending on how the money got into your Roth IRA, that's going to be what's going to determine what those rules are for when you can access the money and specifically how you can access that without having to pay a penalty or maybe even having to pay taxes on that as well. So the first way we can get money into our Roth IRA is through contributions. So if you qualify for making Roth IRA contributions for 2023, you might know that you can put in up to $6,500 per year, and if you're married, you can actually do $6,500 for you and your spouse. Again, there's going to be some income limitations for who qualifies for making those contributions, and if you're 50 years old or older, you get an extra $1,000 that you can put in there, so you can put up to $7,500 per year. So first way is through contributions. We'll talk more about that in a second. Number 2 is going to be from a rollover, and that's going to be a situation where if you have, let's say, a 401k plan where you have Roth money inside your 401k, you can roll that Roth 401k into your Roth IRA. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be through conversions. And that's where you take an existing traditional retirement account, traditional IRA, or it could be a traditional 401k plan, and you convert that money. So in other words, you pay the taxes on that, and then that money goes from your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA account. So that's going to be number 3. And then number 4 is going to be earnings. And that's going to be with the money that you have invested in that Roth IRA account. Hopefully you're putting it into some investments, and those investments may grow over time, and so you may have some earnings that are building up in there. Now, the next thing we need to know is that the IRS is actually going to have an order and a set of rules for how that money is going to be deemed to be withdrawn from your Roth IRA. So the order that they're going to use is going to be number 1 is going to be any of your contributions are going to come out first. Number 2 is going to be any conversions that you did. That's going to be the second thing that they're going to deem that the money is coming from. And then finally, number 3 is going to be any earnings. So again, if hopefully your accounts are growing and they made some money over and above the amount you contributed or converted, those earnings are going to come out last. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the rules specific to each of these 3 categories. So number 1 is going to be your contributions. And you can always take out your contributions regardless of how old you are or how long you've actually had the Roth IRA account open. So if you put $6,000 into a Roth IRA account in 2022, and here in 2023 you want to take that money back out, you can pull your original $6,000 out without any taxes, without any penalties, anytime you want to. You can also qualify for some other special exceptions like the $10,000 first-time home purchase. So you can actually take out up to $10,000 of that, and that can be both your contributions and your earnings. So let's say that $6,000 from the time you put that money in grew to $10,000. Well, you can take that $10,000 out, and even though there are some earnings in there, you would be exempt for that under that first-time home buyer exclusion. Now, if you don't meet the criteria for a special exception, then those earnings that you might have inside your Roth IRA account are going to have some rules that are going to determine whether or not it's going to be a qualified distribution. So a qualified distribution from a Roth IRA account is one where you don't have to pay any taxes on the distribution, and you also don't have to pay any penalties as well. So in order to be a qualified distribution, 2 rules actually have to be met. One is you have to be at least 59 and a half, and 2, also you have to have had the account open for at least 5 years. So both of those criteria actually have to be met in order for you to take those earnings out in addition to your contributions. Okay, so obviously being 59 and a half, that's pretty straightforward, but I want to talk for just a second about how that 5-year rule works as it relates to that first contribution for your Roth IRA and when that clock actually starts ticking. So we probably know that we can make a Roth IRA contribution anytime during the calendar year that we're in and all the way through the tax filing deadline into the next year there. So for 2023, as an example, we can make that contribution anytime from January all the way through April 15th of 2024. And regardless of when we actually make that contribution, whether it's in early January or it's all the way right up until that tax filing deadline into April of the next year, the starting date for that clock is going to be January of 2023. So that means that our 5-year window for that would actually be January of 2028, when that is now going to be meeting that criteria for that qualified distribution. So I think that's very important to understand when that clock actually begins. Now, one other thing I want to mention here is, what if you have a Roth 401k instead of a Roth IRA? How does that work in terms of being a qualified distribution from a Roth 401k? Well, essentially it's going to be exactly the same rules as a Roth IRA, and the two criteria are going to have to be met: that you're at least 59 and a half and you've had that Roth 401k established for at least 5 years in order for those distributions to be deemed qualified and not subject to a penalty or any taxes. Now, one thing that I want to mention and be clear on is, if you roll that Roth 401k plan over to a Roth IRA, now that's going to be depending on when that Roth IRA account was established. So if you never had a Roth IRA account and you established a Roth IRA just so you could take in the rollover from that Roth 401k, well, that's going to start a new clock ticking on that Roth IRA account, and that will not be a qualified distribution until 5 years after the establishment of that Roth IRA account. So that's something to be very careful on. And if you don't have that IRA account already existing in place, you could be tying up that money. Otherwise, you could see some taxes or penalties on that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here, as it's related to taking qualified distributions from your Roth IRA, has to do with that third way that money actually gets put into your Roth IRA, and that's through those Roth conversions. And those are going to work just a little bit differently than our Roth contributions did. So if you remember, with our Roth contributions, we started the clock ticking from that very first contribution, and then once we hit 5 years, then that part of the criteria for a qualified distribution was then met. But with a Roth conversion, every time you do a conversion, it starts a new 5-year clock on that portion of the money that you converted. So for example, if we do a Roth conversion in 2023, that money is not going to be eligible as a qualified distribution until 2028. And just like what we had with the Roth contributions, if we make that during the tax year, whether we do it at the beginning of the year in January or the end of the year in December, it's going to be viewed exactly the same. So it doesn't really matter. But I will point out that that is the rule, that for Roth conversions, we do have just the calendar year. So by December 31st, that's going to be our deadline for doing that Roth conversion. So if we do a Roth conversion in 2023, that money is eligible in 2028. If we do a Roth conversion in 2024, again, to be clear, we have to wait 5 more years. So that's going to mean 2029 is when that money is going to be eligible as a qualified distribution. Okay, so let's put this all together and let's run through a hypothetical example here, and we're going to use that order that we talked about earlier for how those distributions from your Roth IRA account are going to be treated by the IRS. So let's say that we put some money into our Roth IRA account over the years, and let's say we put in $20,000 into our Roth IRA, so those are contributions. And then remember, we can always take that contribution money out anytime we want to without any taxes or penalties, regardless of our age or how long that money's actually been in that account. Let's say we also have some earnings, and let's say over the years we made some money and we made $30,000 of growth over the years, and now we have an account that's worth $50,000. So in order to take out the earnings portion of that, or let's say we want to take all $50,000 out, 2 criteria are going to have to be met in order to have that be tax and penalty free. We're going to have that 5-year rule, so we have to have that account established for at least 5 years, and we also have to be at least 59 and a half. And if we don't meet both of those criteria, then we're going to have a 10% penalty on that $30,000, and we're also going to have to pay the income taxes on that as well. So both a penalty and taxes are going to apply on that. So now let's complicate the scenario just a little bit here, and let's say that we also, let's say 2 years ago, did a Roth conversion of $100,000. So remember what our order is for distributions according to the IRS. It's going to be our contributions first, and then our conversions are going to be second. And then finally, our earnings are going to be the last thing that we take money out of. So if we want to take $50,000 out, but we did a conversion 2 years ago, remember, that's not going to meet the criteria, because even if we had our original Roth IRA account open more than 5 years ago, that conversion starts a new clock ticking, and we're not at that 5-year mark yet. So if we want to take $50,000 out, we're going to get $20,000. That's going to be free, as always, but the other $30,000 is actually going to come from the conversion amount, and we're not going to have to pay taxes on that because we paid taxes on that money when we did the conversion. However, we will have to pay a 10% penalty on that. So that's going to be pretty significant. To have to pay that penalty. $33,000 is what the penalty is going to be in that situation. So, and I wanted to explain this because this is a source where I think we get some people that get a little bit confused about this in understanding how these different things work. So if you're thinking about this in your situation and you're thinking that the Roth IRA account is a place that you may be tapping into, you really want to be a little bit careful about those conversions, because that may basically take away your ability to take those earnings out without having to pay a penalty on that. So anyway, that's it for this video. I know we got into the weeds here a little bit. I hope this was valuable information and you're walking away with some good knowledge here. Remember, hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to learn more about what we do at Money Evolution, check out some of those links below. We just recently launched our retirement planning program called the Retirement Time Machine. There's some great information on it. You can go to retirementtimemachine.com. And also, if you want more of a personal approach, we have our Wealth Vision Comprehensive Plan. You can go to wealthvisionplan.com to learn more about that. So anyway, look forward to seeing you back in our next video, and have a great rest of your day.